Is the M2 MacBook Pro's slow SSDs a big deal in the real world? Well, today I will show you guys the proof. And honestly, I didn't expect it to be this much of a difference for those that use their MacBook Pro for professional uses or even semi-pro. I was quite surprised. Now on Friday, we got the brand new M2 MacBook Pro and we started testing it out. We were super excited, and then we ran into an issue. When we ran the Blackmagic disk speed test, we saw that it was going really slow for some reason. It did not make sense. And then we opened up the back covers to find that there is only one NAND chip for the SSD storage instead of two, like with the M1 MacBook Pro that came out a year and a half ago. And that explained it. When you have half the chips, the speed goes down. And our write speed was 1400 instead of 2200, so that's gonna slow things down. But with that, the read speed was half the performance, slightly less than half. When do we ever have where a new laptop literally has speeds that are half compared to the previous version? That was crazy. Now with that, the new Dell XPS 13, which we're gonna be doing a comparison with against the M2 MacBook Pro, that thing has blazing fast SSDs, incredible PCI Express 4.0, which Apple is not even putting them in here, but then we get this with the base model. Now, some people online said that this is not a big deal, that's still fast enough, so we wanted to see for ourselves, does it really make a big difference? Now, transferring is one thing, and I'll show you guys the performance difference, but also with that, when you're opening up different web browsing tasks, you have one or two applications open, and the RAM, 8 gigs of RAM fills up, well, that means that it has to use the SSD as RAM for swap. And here is the difference in performance. I have 50 42 megapixel images opened right here with corrections, and we ran this test on Friday. So now that we have some different things open, I'm gonna run it again. Now, before I run it, I wanna show you guys what else I have open. So I have Photoshop right here. Let's press in. And in here, I have 9 images open, so nothing crazy, no effects or anything else. And right there, you guys saw that the M1 MacBook Pro actually loaded that up faster. Now, why could it do that when the single core score is way quicker in the M2, the fastest than any laptop, multi-core, and then graphics is faster? Well, it's because we have the base model and the SSDs are much slower. And just to prove to you guys, here we have the M1 and the M2. Now, I also want to mention that these base models sell like hotcakes. Not only are they kept in stock everywhere, bunch of websites online that sell them, the Apple Store, Best Buy. It's just a great price point. So that's why we were so happy with the M1 MacBook Air and M2 MacBook Air, because they performed incredibly. Let's try it one more time with the first image here. Bam, once again. I mean, that's not a huge difference, but this is just opening up an image. Now here's Google Chrome. You guys can see that I don't have an insane amount of tabs open. I mean, we've done some RAM comparisons where we went all out, 4 Pro apps, crazy stuff. This ain't it. A lot of you guys have more tabs open than this. Let's open up YouTube. Let's go to IGN. Right there, you guys saw that the M1 is snappier, which it shouldn't be. How about my Google Drive? Once again, a little bit quicker. We'll do one more. There you go. Now, this is where it's just weird that the M1 feels faster. Now, let's just go ahead and export our 50 images. And that was weird there because I'm pretty sure I clicked the Lightroom here first and then I clicked it here. This one loaded up quicker anyway. So let's export. Now, as you guys could see, the M1 is already rolling. The M2 is just starting up. Now this will start to catch up a bit. I actually ran this test before making this video. I just want to see for myself, does the SSD really matter? And then once I started seeing results like this, I'm like, man, it definitely does matter. Now, the results are pretty shocking. Here's the first results from Friday. We have 2 minutes, and I believe it was 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And then once we have a couple pro apps open, running an export and some tabs, the M1 takes 3 minutes and 36 seconds. So you guys see, it definitely gets slower. Whereas the M2 took 4 minutes and 12 seconds. So it gets slower than the M1. And now we're running a Photomerge in Photoshop. Now, I don't know what the results are gonna be here. I did not test this before when I was just testing for myself, but we'll see what happens. All right, the M1 is done, and we have to wait for the M2. All right, so for some reason it crashed. It was there right at the end. So the M1 took 50 seconds exactly, whereas the M2 took 1 minute and 21 seconds. It was right there at the end where it's supposed to pop it open, and it just crashed on me. I didn't think this would be as difficult of a test. Maybe it is more RAM dependent. And I wanna make it clear that if you don't push your system very hard, you might not care about this. It won't make a difference if, for example, you have 5 tabs open and maybe Photoshop open. But a lot of people, if they're buying a pro machine, they want to be able to do more multitasking and more professional tasks. So in that case, you probably should go for the M2 MacBook Air, even more so now than before. Let's do a few more tests. I'm gonna do a transfer test and export a video. Now, I also noticed a difference in snappiness, even for the UI going through the file menu, just general kind of slowness and stuttering. And that's what made the M1 so good. And now we know that it wasn't only because of the Apple Silicon and all the other great things, but also because they put in really fast SSDs, even for the base model. I'm gonna go ahead and quit Photoshop here, and let's go ahead and open up Final Cut Pro. We have a 5-minute project opened up right here with film grain applied, and a couple LUTs for color correction, which is standard for a lot of people. And let's hit export. Now, we did this exact test on Friday, and the M2 beat out the M1 by 2 seconds, taking 2 minutes and 23 seconds instead of 2 minutes and 25 seconds. This time, the M1 took 3 minutes and 36 seconds, whereas the M2 took 4 minutes and 49 seconds. And that just shows you the difference that you can get. Now, what I'm gonna do right now is close down Lightroom. We had Photoshop closed before we opened up Final Cut. I also closed out some tabs, and let's see what we get this time. Okay, they started out pretty much neck and neck. The M1 was 1% above, and now it's taking the lead a little bit more so. All right, the M1 is almost done, 99%. We're at 87 on the M2. And bam, we are done on the M2. The M1 took 2 minutes and 40 seconds, so just slightly slower than when we just had Final Cut open. And then the M2 took 3 minutes and 3 seconds. Now, we still have a bunch of tabs open. I have my Google Drive. I just closed a few of them there. That I had just random Safari open. So let's check this out. You guys could see I don't have Lightroom open anymore, Photoshop open. Here are my tabs right here. We have one video playing in the background. Oftentimes I'll have music or something else. I have my Google Drive here, and just some regular tabs. And then let's go ahead and open up our activity monitor and see what it looks like. So interestingly, wow, okay, they're running a little bit differently. So here we have both have 8 gigs of RAM, memory use 7.19 gigs compared to 6.5, and that's because the M1 model is using more swap. I don't know if there's more background tasks open. I mean, this is an older machine, and as far as cache, it also has more cache. Or maybe the M2 tries to not use swap as much because it knows it has slower SSDs. I have no idea, I'm not an engineer with SSDs, but you guys see the memory pressure right here looks very similar, but you guys see the performance difference. And now let's go ahead and quit Final Cut, and we are gonna do a transfer speed test. I'm also closing a few of these tabs right here so we have a little bit less. So I'm using my highly recommended Sabrent external drive. It is over Thunderbolt, but it does not hit 2,900 like the M1 MacBook Pro can. So part of this test will be limited just by the speed itself, but that doesn't matter. This is real world, and I have a 35 gigabyte file here that I will be transferring. So it started out pretty quick, and then it slowed down quite a bit. Now, we have plenty of space on this SSD, but what I'm wondering is, what about the SLC cache? We've talked about this before. A lot of SSDs have really fast speeds, but then after you transfer a certain amount, it slows down because they're slower chips that just have one portion that is quick. We don't know what kind of SSD is in here. And now that after 20 gigs we slowed down, there are SSDs that after 20 gigs it starts slowing down. That's what I'm curious about because it's writing way slower now. So that took us 1 minute and 25 seconds to transfer. And now transferring back to the SSD. All right, that's going way faster. When you're transferring from the SSD to something else, you don't have the SLC cache limit, except for unless your external drive has one, which this one is very good, which is why we highly recommend it. We'll link it down in the description below. So that took 58 seconds to transfer. It also slowed down a bit at the end. And now the same file with the M1 MacBook Pro with the faster SSDs. All right, wow, this thing is speeding through it. Still going quick. Okay guys, you saw that for yourselves. 34 seconds. And then going back, that took 45 seconds. So quicker than the M2 MacBook, but not by a huge amount because this SSD is limiting it, which of course the SSDs in here are faster than most external, even Thunderbolt ones. So there you guys go. I was quite surprised when I wanted to test this out for myself to see if it really does make a big difference, because people are saying, no, it doesn't really matter that much, that's fast enough. I was like, surely it has to with swap, because there should be some responsiveness differences, and maybe if you're multitasking. So I started checking it out for myself, and I just had to share with you guys. Now, I would just say it's still a good system, but if you're buying one, make sure you get at least 512 gigabytes, which is gonna cost you an extra $200, not even for the capacity, but just to get the same speed of SSDs that you got last year with the base M1 MacBook Pro, or upgrade to 16 gigabytes of RAM to make sure that you don't go into that swap very often, or realistically both. But then at that point, if you're upgrading both, you're not far away from a 14-inch MacBook Pro, especially if you get one at a discount, which you can get on Amazon. We'll link it down below. That's a much better machine. So I think that's the video we're gonna do next. We're gonna compare the 14-inch real world performance compared to the 13-inch MacBook Pro. So if you guys wanna see that, make sure you click that circle above. Check out one of those great videos over there. This is Max, and I'll see you in the next video.